There we are. We're back on again, brother. So, as we were just talking and I dropped off, when we realize the importance of what we say and adopting things, and this is where my experience in adoptions comes in so much, and I'm so grateful for it, for having gone through that experience, for having to lose both my earthly parents in that manner or whatever manner. It's one of those things that I recognize today as an adult through the scriptural readings, that it's helped me realize that it's a part of the natural course. According to my spirit, I'm not supposed to pay homage to that earthly father. So when I was growing up and I was trying to figure out how to put that family back together, and then came to a realization that I couldn't put it back together, so I tried to build my own family. It too got destroyed in the same manner. And then my family disowned me. And I come to realize it's for a reason. So I'm thankful for my family that I have today and all of you. And it goes back to the ecclesiastical roots. So we're going to start out this next video, next Zoom, with some reading from another source. This one here, folks. The practice of the spiritual or ecclesiastical courts, to which is added a brief discourse of the structure and manner of forming the libel or declaration. A declaration is made under peace, your intellectual ability, patent right to speak your truth peacefully. That's a declaration. A libel is a contract because it places liability. Those are the distinct differences between entering a record. When you enter a record, you have to make a declaration, first and foremost. Then once that declaration is entered in the record, then you can organize. Otherwise, that declaration should be a private foundation and should be recognized as a private foundation. Pure and simple. So, just like my other book, I've got just a few pages where I've got some marks on it that I'm going to read. And the first one starts out, the epistle to the reader. It is not known to any who pretend to the least of either learning or history. Remember, history is just a matter of remembering. It's not learning. That's why they say learning or history. Just like declaration or libel. Though that the civil law, though so contemptible in this our nation, it's telling you the civil law is contempt. It's contempt of the spiritual law. That's why contracts are violations. And you shouldn't be entering into them. It is a study of as great learning and reason as any law in the world. Law and reason, or learning and reason, is the law. Learning and reason as any law in the world. Your reason and learning is here. The law is in the world that you observe here. No nation where it is professed ever yet complaining of its deficiency in anything. This is why they say you got to perfect title. No, you don't. That's their deficiency. They're the ones that don't recognize the perfectness in the living soul, and that's why it's down on paper, and that's why it's libel, because they can't tell the truth about the soul. The soul can only be expressed in truth by itself. No one else.
in anything might render it complete and perfect, so as to administer suffice to everyone in their station. In other words, again, what I just said, it can only suffice to be true if you recognize it as true in your station, your status, how you see things. The next one, the practice of ecclesiastical courts, the third part, and it talks about in the title, the manner of proceeding in plenary causes. Plenary causes, from the first bringing. The first bringing. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. There is no other bringing. The Word of God brought everything. Or giving in of the libel, from the first bringing, or it was brought to me, or the giving, what I export, give in of the libel or declaration. So what I give has to either be libel or it has to be a declaration that was already declared. If you're not following that which was already declared, you are producing a libel, even until sentence be given and executed. What a libel is. I shall not here trouble you with the several species of libel, nor the diverse exceptions and definitions of them, nor their structure, etc., seeing I have intended a more particular discourse to that purpose. A libel, therefore, in short, is derived from a libro, from a book. That's what libel comes from. Libro comes from book, whence formerly a paper, somebody's writing. The book, known as the Bible, is a set of writings from many people. That is the libel. If you depend on their word without making your own singular interpretation, and are able to clarify that in the declaration as you see it as being peaceful, and using their word for your interpretation, your translation, then you're just merely using somebody else's word. You have no foundation yourself. The next one, of the contemplation litus, or the contesting of suit. Contest of suit. See, that First Amendment gives you a right to redress the government, and everybody thinks therefore they have the right to protest, when in fact it means you have the right to petition the government for contesting the record. The record. You contest the record. You don't test the man. You don't test God. You test the libel that's written down. What is it? When it ought be done, and by whom? What is done is what ought be done. It's already been done, and it was done by our Father which art in heaven. And if you follow that declaration, it's thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Not your will, not your writings, his will. His will is an action. I tell people all the time, I'm not a noun. You can't give me a name. I don't have a name. I am a verb. I am an act of God, and every breath proves it. How many-fold this contestation of suit is? Like they were talking about earlier, he's not going to mention the species. When you get an officer that wants to sit there and say he is suspicious of your activity, therefore he wants your identification, he's going to hand that identification over to an attorney who is then going to shop for a forum to present the libel. He's going to decide what jurisdiction he wants to present the libel in. This proves that the officer didn't have jurisdiction to present anything to begin with. He is acquiring libel if you give it to him, and you are liable for it because you gave it to him. Quit giving them shit. Know how to quit giving them shit. The manner and form of contesting a suit and by whom. When they ask me for ID, I don't have any, and I can prove it. You can search me if you want. You will not find any documentation on me. You will not find it. So when they ask for a name, I don't have a name either. You can look, you can strip me down to my nakedness, and you will not find a name or a number on me. It's not there. I can't give it to you. You want intellectual property? I'll give you that. I'll teach you something. Because when you sit there and look at me and tell me, well, everybody's got a name, I'm going to tell you no. Nobody has a name. You can strip everybody down to its nakedness, and it does not have a name. Not in the flesh and blood. What we have is a calling that other people give us. I have people call me asshole because that's the way they interpret me. That's fine. They can call me an asshole, but that doesn't mean my name is asshole. Okay? But people have called me Keith all my life, and if mom and dad got mad at me, they might call me Keith Orland. Now, I hail from the family Little, and I hear I was born around August 20th, 1966. They now have information that is relative to data that they want to document as a name and address, or name and birthday. But I didn't give them that. I gave them an education that they can't write down. If they write it down as a name, that is a falseness. I told them I don't have a name. And if they write it down as a name, that's their interpretation. They did not translate it correctly. The manner of getting a decree for the principal party to answer to the libel by whom it is obtained. Okay? The libel is obtained by the officer. That's when it becomes libel. And he's going to give it to his principal, the attorney, who is the trustee of that fictional trust. And neither one of them have proof, because they took it wrong through their own interpretation. The manner of obtaining a term probatory. We talk about the letter rogatory. What about the term probatory? Does that sound like probate court? No court of probate has jurisdiction over the estate of the person who is in fact alive. No one.
I got a question, Keith.
Go ahead.
What about approbation?
Same thing. Anything to do with probate is trying to express a will that doesn't need to be expressed because it's already been expressed. It's already been declared. The trust is already there. All you got to do is express it. You don't have, they even tell you, express the trust. You don't have to write it down. And why not? Because once you express the trust, they can't breach the trust. So there's no need to write it down so they can expect it in their attempt to breach it. If they don't recognize the express trust as an agreement already, then they are already trying to violate that trust by getting you to put libel on a record. Their record. So we go on to the next part, and this is where we get interesting. This is why I talk about the certifications in regards to the certification is false. The certification is in fact false. There's no way it can be true unless you gave it in your own handwriting. You have now heard how this commission is to be certified. We are talking about commissions. And seeing it is said to be necessary for the notary public to take care to subscribe every leaf of the depositions. Leaf. Look at the gates to the tree of knowledge, and they are leaves. It's symbolic. The language is symbolic. The paper is a leaf, and it comes from the tree of knowledge. If it's not true, then it's a false leaf.
Is that in correlation with really?
Yes. It is likewise equally necessary for the same reasons that the notary public transmit the original deposition themselves. The original deposition themselves. For otherwise, yet in the transcribing or copying of them, these depositions are wont to be copied or transmitted corruptly, or at least not to exact as they ought. But if the notary public doth not transmit the original depositions, but copies, he ought to take diligent heed that the originals be kept safe in his custody. For that if any scruple arise touching the truth or falsehood of the proceeding so transmitted, it may easily be decided by exhibiting the originals. If they don't have your original handwritten statement of intent to do something that is then certified, no matter what certification they put on the other side, there is no certification to be qualified. Therefore, their certificate of compliance doesn't apply, because they can't apply it to something that is not applicable to. They can't apply their certificate of compliance to another certificate that has never been entered. They can't say their certificate of compliance goes to an original source if the original source is their own certification. It can only certify they're liable. It doesn't certify what I say at all. Period. This is why I talk about that motor vehicle operator's lease. In that, it says that you have to write a handwritten statement of your intent to perform the functions of public office. You have to be operating as a transmitting utility as a resident, and you use the Social Security card or number to get that driver's license, that then you use a card with a name and address. Now that same thing happens when you go to the bank and open up a bank account. You use the Social Security number to open up a bank account, and in order for them to contact you and communicate with you about that debt, which you've given them consent to communicate with you about that debt by giving them that Social Security number, they need a name and address to send it to. So now you again converted the number in lieu of a name and address. And we've all been indoctrinated to use a name and address, when in fact all we have to use is that international security number. And that's exactly what it is. It's a number that pertains to the record. And if you took a look at that 19 CFR 149.3, you'll see it in there. We have the right to use a number in lieu of the name and address. So let's get back to the treat.
Say that one more time. 19 USC.
19 CFR.
Oh, 19 CFR.
149.3. Yep.
I got you.
Okay. Now, let's go back to... Oops.
And if y'all watching, give my brother a donation. He's put a lot of this information together. Support. I mean, we got to learn how to support each other, especially when people are giving this information for free. Like, this take a lot of time and research. So I'm just asking, like, when you see brothers dropping this donate, man, it's that give him inspiration and allow him to get other materials and resources to put it together. So just give him a donation. If you ain't got it, $2 or $3, then next week, give a little something extra. But we need to start donating in this community so that we can empower each other and get the truth out.
I appreciate that comment, brother. I really do, because I've got a companion that helps me out with things I absolutely need, but I try to be as independent as possible and do everything I can through my donations. So, and I'm very limited. If people think I'm putting this information out and people are donating to me left and right, they don't. They do not. I do not get much for donations, so don't think that I do. So let's go on. As we were talking about earlier, acceptance of entry into force, the entry of the record. That entry in the record as birth registration is the assignment. An assignment is a trust term of assigning a trustee. You do not assign a beneficiary. However, they signed a number to the beneficiary, to the child, newborn child, as a beneficiary for Medicare benefits. So it is a beneficial position. And it started out through that by entering into the record through the Bureau of Vital Statistics. This is directly related to the International Bureau. So we see the information at the level of the county, the municipal office, was entered into a bureau of Vital Statistics. And that Bureau of Vital Statistics is the entrance into the Interstate Identification Index. That index is relative to the State Bureau of Investigations, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the U.S. Department of State Bureau of Consular Affairs, the Customs Bureau, and then, of course, the International Bureau. And this is taken on, tasks are by the Director General of the International Bureau, and I've spoken of him a long time ago. Swiss Confederation and the Federal Chancellor, the Director General of the International Bureau, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and then your other national coordinates, the U.S. Department of State, U.S. Department of Defense, Treasury, Department of Commerce, U.S. Attorney General, Homeland Security, as a matter of redressing the record. When we talk about Article 6, it's amendments. Before you accept and enter into force, you're allowed to make amendments, proposals, and other adoptions. You can adopt Scripture and amend the Scripture into your own entry into force. Acceptance of entry into force for countries outside the Union. That's a country outside the Union, developing countries, private foundations in establishing themselves in an organized fashion, not yet organized, still in development stages. It might take a couple decades, as most countries do. Reservation, limits of possibility of making reservations, earlier reservations, Holy Scripture. The Scriptures are your reservation. Okay? Application of certain territories. This is the Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Section 7. Special maritime and territorial jurisdictions do not apply. They do not apply. Disputes, there is no dispute. How do we know that? Because they have Public Law 97-280 says Scriptures are the law of the land. Closing of certain earlier provisions. We can close off all articles until we can fully comprehend and fully organize under them. But going to be kind of hard to do if in your organizing you find you do not have the capabilities of providing a naval force. Means you are still dependent upon that Entrepot position in being able to import and export, whether you have a land force or a naval force, water force or land force, because you have an air force, a spiritual force, whereas all ecclesiastical commands come from the firmament, and that is my firm offer. I affirm you. Has nothing to do with insurance. Application of the convention. Obligation to adopt the necessary measures, time from which the obligation exists. Pre-incorporated, the obligation does not exist because you are not incorporated to take upon the obligation. Therefore, you are one of the protected beneficiaries, no matter what. It is impossible for you to be organized because you do not have land forces, you do not have marine forces. Therefore, you must stick with your scriptural, spiritual forces and let your yea be your yea and your nay be your nay. Languages of the act is as such. Signature is not required. Certification is not required. Registration is not required. Notification is already had because, like I said, all nations are developed upon spiritual scriptures thereof. Notification is already given. We're born into it. We're born Catholics, we're born Protestants, we're born Muslims, and we grow up learning about that from our families, despite the public education's indoctrination trying to get us to not recognize it. Here we go, Article 38. Article 38, correlation to the first article of the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union. Transitory provisions. Constitution of the Universal Postal Union, Article 1 says freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union. And in fact, we are not residents, we are transitory people, not requiring certifications and signatures and identifications of registration. Exercise of the 5-year privilege to Bureau of the Union, Director of the Bureau, Secession of the Bureau of the Union. The 5-year privilege is for becoming established. And like I said, many countries take decades, not just 5 years. So in 5 years, you just give them a notice again. We still haven't been able to completely organize. We're still in the phases of establishing and developing. So we're going to stick with the agreement as we already have. Simple as that. Then they talk about special provisions regarding developing countries. Faculty is open to developing countries. They're open to developing countries. Availability of certain faculties declaration. Duration of effective declaration, that's that 5-year privilege. Cessation of developing country status. Existing stocks of copies. Copies of all of the notes. Promissory notes. What is a note? A draft is an order if one thing, a note if another thing. Limitations on right of translation. Licenses grantable by competent authority. So, if we agree that the law of nations under the Treaty of Berne and the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union is a competent authority, we can contract under the law of nations and subject ourselves to the Uniform Customs Codes, Her Majesty's Uniform Customs Code. We can do so if you want, but again, you have to be able to do so with the law of nations, be able to establish a military land force, military naval force, military air force, something of the sort, something to translate and transmit your notices. Your yea, your nay, your nay. That's the airwaves, folks. All postal roads and routes, every last one of them. Licenses grantable by competent authority, conditions allowing the grant of such licenses. He didn't grant me a license. He granted me the ability, the talent of expressing myself in many languages. Verbally, orally, literally. I can write it down, I can speak it, or I can just walk in the way of Jesus. Those are 3 different languages. And he has given me the talent to do so. Multiple talents. There has to be a purpose for which the license may be granted. Under the purpose of the Treaty of Berne, it's for protection. Under the license, it's for liability, in case somebody breaches that protection. That's an insurance. Works composed mainly of illustrations, works withdrawn from circulation, licenses for broadcasting organizations. WIPO. WIPO.
I got a question, Keith. a lot of people are doing this common law copyright stuff, and
Don't need it.
So I was trying to tell them that, like, even if you express the trust, you can license everything out through contract if that's what you wanted to do.
Yes.
But all of this copyright and all of this stuff that you're doing, it just convolute everything, and then it puts you back into the jurisdiction, and now they got to say.
Yeah. When it comes to copyright and stuff, it's just like trust. All you have to do is express it. Just express it. And the only thing it takes to express it is a little symbol. You don't have to write up a document. You just have to have a little symbol there showing it's copyrightable, and this is the origin. Nobody else can source this symbol anywhere else but to this page. And my physical writings, which I have in my trust documentation, that's the cover of my trust, my private member association documentation, showing how we are how we are put together, how we are constructed. That's all it takes. We got 10 minutes left, so we're going to finish up with limitation of the right of reproduction. This is what Samuel Clemens went on. He distributed his works to Canada, and he allowed the production of those works to be viewed in America before it actually transpired through his contract for America. And this was a violation of limitations. They didn't have the right to allow for the transmittal of the production for Canadian citizens to be transmitted to American citizens because there was a different contract allowing for the imports into America. So though it wasn't, and that's why we have to be very succinct about our international contracts. If we contract with Canada to produce a publishing in Canada, one of our publishings, we have to be very succinct that the laws cannot use it to trade with another country because we have possible trade agreements with them for the same material. Therefore, they can't make an agreement with another country for that material unless they check with us first to make sure we don't already have an agreement with that other country. Or in that contacting the other country to make a trade agreement, they have to make sure with that country that country doesn't have a prior trade agreement with us. It's their liability. They're the ones committing to that transaction after it's already come from an original work. They are a second-hand party. If you are not the originator, then you have no control. If you are the originator, you have to realize they have no control as the second party, period. Provisions common to licenses under Article 2 and 3, 1 and 2 procedure, indication of author and title of work, that's that copyright. That's all I had to do was indicate. Not that it's copyright, but that symbol says that it's copyrightable. Because if there's no copyright on record, it still relates to the origin of where it came from, saying that it's copyrightable, because that's the origin. And nobody else has the right to copyright it, because I say so. See, when Etsy takes that symbol and sells it to some organization that wants to make stickers and posters and calendars and stuff, and sell it by saying that it's a Alpha Omega Christian symbol, that is false. I did not put it out as an Alpha Omega Christian symbol. When we look at it, and I will explain it in the artwork that I created, we see the Alpha, we see an Omega, and we see a cross. But that is not the intent of my design. My design was the intent of the Alpha, the Omega, the Phi, which is a circle with a dash in the middle going horizontal, and my post is my vertical standing, which symbolizes my crossroads in the Alpha, Omega, and Phi. As the Phi, I am Christ in Eucharist, the blood and flesh of that which is my legacy, my mother and my father, my true mother and my true father. For even my earthly father came from the same source, the Alpha and the Omega, and they played their same part in bearing their cross in life by being the Phi, the circle with the dash, and posting the elements of their life within those three characters. It is a trilogy. It is a trust. And if you don't recognize that and portray it as a Christian Alpha Omega symbol and then sell it to somebody else so they can sell it on their platform, I'm going to eat you alive for your very incompetence of origin. Indication of author and title of work. I indicate it, not Etsy. Etsy indicated as a Alpha Omega Christian symbol. I am not Christian. I am not Catholic. I am not Protestant. I am not Jew. I am a living soul. Possibilities of applying or admitting the application of certain provisions of the appendix before becoming bound by it. Declaration. Depository and effective date of declaration. This is all it takes, is my letting the Constitution of the Universe of the Treaty of Berne and the people, the Director General of the International Bureau, know that somebody is placing data elements in a commercial record using my origin material and falsely describing it through misdescription as a Christian Alpha Omega symbol. It has nothing to do with their false Christianity. Nothing. And it pisses me off. The countries of the Union being equally animated. They have no standing. They have no motion themselves. They must be animated by something, and that is the desire to protect that which already is, because they can't produce it. They can only protect it, and that is the record. They have to protect the record, and if you are not in that record that somebody else is putting on as an affront to you, they have to protect you without a record because of your intellectual ability to say, no, I don't want to be part of that. And that is all it takes. If you are raping somebody and they say no, it's rape. Excuse me, if you're having sex or intercourse with somebody and they say no, it's rape. We have to come to the resolution and realize that we are the controlling party. We have to be able to import through the proper observances what we want to export. Because if we're not paying attention to the import, then our exports are going to be nothing but babble. Our contracts are going to be screwing us. I urge people to learn how to contract before you enter into anyone. I quit signing 6 years ago, and I have not signed anything in contract form at all. When I give any kind of signature, it's first name only. And it's in plain English block writing. It is not script. It is not cursive. So I urge people to think about this stuff. Like I said, I'm hoping I can fix this problem with Zoom like I did with PayPal. Now that I've got that established, hopefully Zoom will be able to recognize it. Hopefully I can bring PayPal's assistance in with it to help, at least their legal department, help communicate back and forth that, yeah, the guy's right, you know, He's a private foundation. Somewhere to get people to start recognizing that I'm only doing things to be peaceful and honorable, and I'm not trying to stiff Zoom. I'm still willing to give them the $139 or whatever it is for a year's subscription, but I prefer to change the terms to a donation so that I'm not being used as a merchant, but rather as a beneficial user, and therefore in donating the subscription amount, they will be able to donate me the use of a licensed platform without license for liability. So think about this stuff, people. And remember, once again, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless. Have a great day. Thanks for joining me, brother. I'll get these posted as soon as possible. And remember, like my brother said, I do this all free. I don't charge anybody, but I could always certainly use the donations. I struggle, people, and if I had those donations, I would be able to communicate more quicker and more efficiently and effectively with these people that want to deny my access to that which is public accommodation. So again, think about it, and remember, I love you guys.